We'll take you live to the meeting between... Well, these were the live images coming from the meeting between President of the United States and the leader Kim Jong-un. We'll keep you posted on this, but right now we'll continue with our news stories. Now, US President Donald Trump says he is not in a rush to denuclearize Iran and North Korea. Trump visited the demilitarized zone along with Moon and inspected border area from observation post. Trump said he has a good feeling about the visit as it will help build a better relationship with North Korea. Earlier, talking to media alongside South Korea's President Moon Jae-in, Trump confirms a meeting with North Korea's Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un at the DMZ. He said the meeting might pave the way for a third summit between Washington and Pyongyang.
I'll be meeting with Chairman Kim. I look forward to it very much. I look forward to seeing him. We've developed a very good relationship, and we understand each other. I do believe he understands me, and I think I maybe understand him.
Meanwhile, Russia's President Vladimir Putin says Moscow and Tokyo have agreed to set up a joint economic activities on a disputed chain of islands. The Russian president met Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on the sidelines of the G20 summit. Putin says they discussed meetings of the issue of North Korea and a peace treaty with Japan. Meanwhile, in Sudan, opposition leaders have announced a million march against the ruling military today. Sudan's military rulers have warned of a showdown if the people take to the streets. Security forces are raiding houses and offices of protest leaders and have arrested most of them ahead of the march in Khartoum. Earlier on June 3rd, the military killed over 100 protesters in a crackdown. Direct talks between the military and opposition leaders collapsed since then. Libya's government says it has seized US-made missiles from a key base captured from the forces loyal to Commander Haftar in Gharian town. The city, overrun last week, was home to Haftar's main supply base and housed a major weapons cache. The government says its forces seized a number of US-made Javelin anti-tank missiles packed in wooden crates. Libyan media aired footage showing US military markings on the weapons. Officials say the arms have been documented and the government will announce its decision later. Leaders of the West African nations have formally agreed to name a planned common currency, the ECO. The 15-member group made the announcement at the end of the summit in Abuja. More in this report.
Leaders of the Economic Community of West African states meet in Nigeria for the 55th Summit of the Heads of State. Kicking off with a focus on security, the meeting put forward plans for a shared African currency. The ECO, West Africa's version of the euro, is expected to boost cross-border trade.
This is an essential prerequisite if we are to attain the primary objective of our organization, which is to, I quote, promote cooperation and integration, leading to the establishment of an economic and monetary union in West Africa.
A United Nations representative says the global body also backs the ECOWAS efforts.
United Nations remains committed to stand by ECOWAS in its determined and impressive efforts in West Africa, standing out as a model sub-regional organization.
Nigeria, whose oil-dependent economy accounts for two-thirds of the region's GDP, is likely to dominate the monetary zone. But the country has so far been skeptical about the benefits of a shared currency.
Moving on, Saudi-led coalition says it has intercepted 2 bomb-laden drones launched by Yemen's Houthis from the capital Sana'a. Earlier, the Houthis said they carried out drone attacks on airports in Jizan and Habas, the capital of Asir province. The coalition says the first drone targeted the province of Jizan and the second was aimed at a residential area in Asir. It says Yemen's rebels failed to hit their intended targets. No loss of life or property has been reported. The US has deployed F-22 stealth fighters to Qatar for the first time amid ongoing tensions with Iran. This comes more than a week after Iran shot down a US drone. US Air Force's Central Command announced the jets arrived at the Al Udeid air base to defend American forces. The forces did not give the total number of F-22s deployed, but a handout picture showed at least 5 warplanes. The United States and Iran have been locked in an escalating standoff since US President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from their 2015 nuclear deal. Now, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani says Pakistan has extended Afghanistan traders access to Thor border from 12 to 24 hours. This comes after Ghani's official visit to Pakistan, during which both countries agreed to reset ties. Ghani says the decision was made during his meeting with top officials in Islamabad. Afghanistan Chamber of Commerce says trade between both countries has shrunk from $3 to $1 billion currently. The Thor border is open for a trade and travel for 12 hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. British Prime Minister Theresa May has urged Iran to uphold its 2015 nuclear deal obligations. She says all signatories should work together to counter Iran's threat to abandon the pact. The outgoing Prime Minister says escalating tensions in the Gulf is not in anyone's interest.
With tensions rising in the Gulf, we must all stand together. Escalation is in no one's interest. We need engagement on all sides to find a diplomatic solution to the current situation and to counter Iran's destabilising activity. At the same time, the UK will continue to work with our JCPOA partners to do all we can to keep the Iran nuclear deal in place.
Meanwhile, Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan says the US does not plan to impose sanctions on Ankara for buying Russian defense systems. Erdogan's statement comes after the US president said Turkey was not treated fairly in the past over the defense deal. Turkey says it would not back down before the early July delivery date of the S-400, but in contrast to statements of US officials, President Trump said Turkey had been treated unfairly over its decision to buy the missile defense system. He said the administration of former President Barack Obama created a mess on the issue. Trump did not rule out sanctions. Russia's Interfax agency quoted a Kremlin spokesman as saying the deal envisages a partial handover of technology. Erdogan also said that despite being a strategic partner of the US, Turkey does not allow anyone to meddle in its sovereign rights. Now, Albania is headed into bitterly disputed local elections, which have pushed the country into a democratic crisis. The main opposition is boycotting the polls, counselling members to remain peaceful. The Democratic Party and Socialist Integration Party have refused to field candidates in the country's 61 municipalities. As a result, the opposition will also lose power in the 24 municipalities it currently controls. President Ilir Met issued a decree to postpone the poll, but Prime Minister Edi Rama insists today's polls will go as planned. Opposition has held protests demanding Rama's resignation over corruption and electoral fraud allegations. Thousands of Georgians have taken to the streets of Tbilisi for a peaceful march. Protesters called on Russia to pull back its forces from the country's breakaway regions. This comes a week after hundreds were injured in protests against a Russian lawmaker's visit to the parliament. The March for Peace protesters demand resignation of Interior Minister Georgy Gakaria and a pullout of Russian forces from disputed territories. Russian influence in Georgia remains a politically sensitive subject. The small country, a US ally, fought and lost a short wars against Moscow in 2008. Russia recognizes the independence of Albania's South Ossetia and Abkhazia, where its troops now are garrisoned.
Mainly we're protesting two things. first of all, is the occupation of Russia, because we believe that everyone in this country and everyone outside of this country should remember that not only 20% of Georgia is occupied by Russia, but they continue to oppress us every day, every month. And the second thing is that we want Gacharia to leave, because what he has done on 20th of June.
Moving on, 5 people have died and 350 more injured as massive floods hit Russia's Siberia region. President Vladimir Putin has called for more emergency shelters to prevent further loss of life. Putin says those impacted should be made aware of shelters, medical care, food and water supplies in the region. He ordered officials to quickly start restoration work in the flood-affected areas. Russian emergency services have evacuated some 10,000 residents from the villages. Weather officials say the situation is set to improve with no more rains expected today. Now, the captain of a migrant rescue ship has been arrested by the Italian police and taken away for questioning. Sea-Watch 3 Captain Carola Rackett docked the ship in Italy's Lampedusa port early today after defying orders from the Italian government. The ship with 42 rescued migrants on board has been brought to the docks after being anchored off the island for 3 days. Earlier, Interior Minister Matteo Salvini refused to allow the migrants to enter Italy, despite growing pressure from inside the country and Europe. Salvini says they broke the law by ignoring orders not to enter Italian waters. Small demonstrations in cities including Rome, Milan and Palermo have expressed solidarity with the Sea-Watch crew and the migrants. Welcome back after the break. Now moving on with the news stories. US President Donald Trump says he will appeal against the court verdict barring diversion of defense funds from the Mexico border wall. Trump said there is no reason for blocking borders wall funds. Earlier, a federal judge ruled that the Trump administration's proposal to transfer $2.5 billion from anti-drug activities was unlawful. President Trump has sought to build a wall along the US-Mexico border, but failed to get the congressional approval to do so. In France, more than 700 firefighters and 10 aircrafts are battling to contain wildfires in the southern region of God. Wildfires have contributed to a stifling heat wave, which brought sweltering temperatures to parts of Europe, killing at least 3 people in Italy. The massive fire has caused sections of motorways to be temporarily closed. Fire spread over 600 hectares of land and destroyed several houses and vehicles. Several firefighters were injured, according to French media. A man has been arrested for deliberately starting fires in a Gard village. The extreme heat is expected to ease in southern France, but temperatures is still forecast at close to 40 degrees. Authorities in the capital maintained a ban on driving old cars to curb heatwave-related pollution. Earlier, the World Met Department organization termed this year's among the hottest in history. The eruption of the volcano Mount Ulavus in Papua New Guinea has forced 15,000 people to be evacuated from their homes. The authorities have declared a state of emergency with the risk of more people being forced to leave the area. Earlier, the army has been deployed to assist in the situation. International flights have also been halted. Ulavus is one of the world's most hazardous volcanoes. Meanwhile, a ship carrying tons of garbage has arrived back from Canada from the Philippines. Ottawa says the waste will be treated safely. Canada sent household rubbish mislabeled as recyclable plastics to Philippines in 2013. The government pins the blame on a private company for the transaction. Earlier, Canada missed the deadline set by Manila to take back the trash, prompting a diplomatic row. Waste exports have remained a bone of contention between the two countries for a very long time. Now, paddlers in Paris have held a competition to raise funds for the French National Sea Rescuers Association. More in this report. Around 200 paddlers took part in the Mile SNSM Paddle Trophy race to raise funds.
I think it is important to support sea rescuers, as we recently saw with the Sabdulon tragedy. We're talking about people giving their time for free, who devote their energy and passion to serve others for free. It matters to support them. They need funds, and it was the occasion to support them.
To pay tribute to the deceased rescuers, the participants marked a minute's silence and threw a bouquet of flowers into the Seine.
At least Sabdulon, there was an accident during a rescue operation, and 3 rescuers died. And so, this year, the mill was an occasion to honor their memory.
The 1.5-hour race took the pack past some of the most famous monuments in one of the world's most famous cities. Now, Colombia's famous underground salt cathedral has hosted a fashion show in celebration of African culture this week. More in this report. African-inspired fashion was displayed on the ramp of Bogota. The African fashion show has raised the mood of African people and displayed their culture in a glamorous way.
Very few times do we hear Africa mentioned alongside fashion. It's a rich scene in Africa. There are great stylists and models, but the industry wants to downplay the name Africa, the African culture. The importance of events like this is that it's lifting the strength of African culture.
The event organizers hope showcasing fashion weeks will bring Africa to new audiences.
Entrepreneurship, talent, art, and culture. I feel that it is necessary to advocate for Africa, respecting the contributions that Africa has made to humanity. The first hominids were found in Africa, and what has happened in that the image of the people born on this continent has been distorted, damaged. I feel it is important to re-evaluate the meaning of race.
African Fashion Show is attempting to change the general image of the continent's people, underlining their dignity, creativity, and humanity. A museum in Washington has maintained artifacts from Apollo 11, the spaceflight that landed the first 2 people on the moon. More in this report.
This July will mark the 50th anniversary of the historic moon landing. Washington's Smithsonian Air and Space Museum has long preserved artifacts from the flight.
These were made for one-time use, get to the moon and back. The materials were all new in the 1960s for temporary use. We know the rubber bladders were only supposed to last 6 months, and they've lasted now 50 years, so we're hoping to preserve them for another 50 years.
The artifacts include Neil Armstrong's gloves and Buzz Aldrin's communication carrier. Armstrong's spacesuit was recently taken off display for restoration work.
Still, gloves are really the most difficult part of a spacesuit to design because the fingers are so very delicate but so absolutely necessary for human activities.
The museum hopes to keep these artifacts in pristine condition for generations of space enthusiasts.
Now, Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton, will visit Pakistan this autumn at the request of Britain's Foreign Office. The trip will mark Kate and William's first visit to Pakistan. Pakistan's High Commissioner in London, Nafeez Zakaria, has welcomed the announcement. Zakaria says the upcoming visit is a reflection of Pakistan's strong ties with the United Kingdom. He says both countries wish to strengthen historical links. The European Union and South American trade bloc, Mercosur, have agreed on a historic trade deal. It's thought to be one of the world's largest regional commercial accords. More in this report. After 20 years of talks between the European Union and Mercosur members, a trade deal has finally been reached. Previous negotiations often stalled because of European farmers' sensitivities over the beef market. Brazil has called the agreement historic, while Argentina says it's unprecedented. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has welcomed the accord reached amid international trade tensions.
This is a landmark agreement for a number of reasons. Firstly, it shares highs. The agreement reached today will create a free trade area covering 760 million people bringing two continents together closer in a spirit of openness and cooperation.
Previously, France had objected to a surge in South American agricultural exports to Europe. France's President Emmanuel Macron also threatened not to sign any EU-Mercosur trade deal if Brazil pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
In concrete terms, we reiterated a statement with 19 countries, noting the commitment of every member of the G20, apart from the United States, to implement the Paris Agreement, the irreversibility of that agreement and its implementation, and to move forward with that.
De continuer à progresser.
Macron later acknowledged the deal met all France's demands.
I consider that this agreement at this stage is a good one, given that the demands that we made have all been taken into account by the negotiators.
President Macron welcomed Brazil's commitment to the Paris Accord at the G20 summit. Well, that's all for now. For more news and updates, keep watching Indus News.